Hello, welcome to the 74th episode of Unifying Force. I'm Kat, joined by Dave and Gio. How is everybody?
Hey, doing well.
All right, so there's been some stuff. There's been Comic-Con, D23, and announcements. Dave, you like to lead us off? Or?
So, there's like crazy stuff going on, and there's announcements all over the fandom, and we're going to cover some of the like Star Wars adjacent ones, and we'll probably just cover some that aren't Star Warsy at all that just have interest in us, because we know, like, we're crossover fans, you're crossover fans. There's a whole lot of stuff out there. I'm going to start with my absolute favorite announcement, unexpected. I don't know if it was unexpected across the board or what, but those of us that were in the room shocked the ever-loving snot out of us in the SpongeBob 25th anniversary panel. Is they announced not only are we getting, I think, a fourth SpongeBob movie, but they announced a new voice actor for the SpongeBob movie, Mr. Mark Hamill. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Are you excited about Mark Hamill in SpongeBob or what?
They have had a ton of celebrities in SpongeBob over the years. I'm not sure if he's ever voiced a character on that show before, but cool.
I think he has worked with them before, but what was announced in the kind of the biggie for this movie is that his character is going to be pretty big. I don't know if because we were excited that Mark freaking Hamill walked out and was in the room breathing the same air as the people here, and we had no clue. But I didn't hear the whole thing. I don't know if something happened to the previous voice actor or what, but I think Mark is going to be voicing the Flying Dutchman. So, and he's going to be like a major part of this new movie. So I think that's going to be kind of a cool thing.
It's interesting because usually Brian Doyle Murray voices the Dutchman and has on the show for the whole run.
Yeah, so I don't know if there was a falling out with him or if they just needed to have a bigger voice in it, but that was the announcement is that he's going to be in the newest underwater adventure. He's going to be that. So, I don't know.
It's always good to see Luke Skywalker get more work.
The movie, I think, is titled The Search for SquarePants. I don't know. But yeah, I hope nothing's wrong with Brian Doyle Murray, but we're excited about Hamill and joining that whole thing, and it made for a heck of an announcement. Yeah, and like some other ones that I was really excited. Action figures, like Star Wars started me in action figures. Okay, so this is kind of a natural progression. But when you get your Star Wars action figures, in 1978-ish, that they promise you that they're going to send you some. They send you a cardboard thing, and then it's like, really, they're coming. But then you get hooked on action figures in the 3 3/4 size. So it was a natural thing for me to go straight into G.I. Joe. Okay. So there were some announcements in that the Hasbro front is HasLab is doing a new 6-inch size Joe, Cobra Rattler, the like one of the iconic Cobra airplane toys, that has been around forever, and they're going to do that as a HasLab. I think it is still it's funded, but I think that they're still taking orders as we speak, and I have so far to date managed to keep myself from spending a whole lot of money on that.
So far.
But it ain't over yet. Because they pushed back, I think this was before, they pushed back the delivery date on their previous G.I. Joe HasLab, which I've got a 3.5-foot helicopter on its way to me, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that in this room. But that is what that is. But also at the HasLab booth, like they kept it undercover for a while, and what they're putting out, and over there at that booth, Acolyte figures. Acolyte, the vintage collection, 3 3/4 figures. Is I made a point of sitting there and taking a picture of those on my phone when I was sitting there taking pictures of the Rattler. Ooh, bad timing. But, so I mean, that's the thing is that I'm trying not to get into that, and I appreciate that you guys are holding back and not jumping off this segue as well, because we're gonna get there. But San Diego had a lot. It was very Acolyte centric in the Lucasfilm booth. Is I'm sitting here thumbing back through my photos, and they had costumes from the show, the used costumes for the Stranger and May, the lightsabers of Saul and the Stranger, Torben's lightsaber, Kelnaka's lightsaber, Jecky's lightsaber, Vernestra's like purple roby deal. I think that was Vernestra. No, was that with Mace? That might have been Mace. Well, let's look. Oh no, that was Mother Anastaea's robe, and then they had Vernestra's like the very High Republic-y looking outfit, the white and the gold and the big fancy.
Mm-hmm.
So a whole lot of that. So
that was probably still quite an experience to see those in person.
It
had a great look.
It did. It had a great look. They had May's kind of her first, not smugglery, but like space mechanic outfit going with the new little pip droid that I think should have been the star of that from all along. I even have, I made sure that I took like close-ups of the little pip droidy thing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, is all of those figures and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess they'll still sell in a way, in a sad way. They might even sell better now.
It could be that way, yeah.
But some other like great announcements. So there are big announcements at San Diego, and we're going to hit some of the other big announcements shortly. And there were like small announcements, smaller that you had to be there kind of thing that you wouldn't hear about. I went to a Star Wars morning. There was one panel room that they started out on a behind the scenes of Batuu, Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge. And they were telling us all this sort of stuff. One announcement in that I hadn't heard before, maybe people have, there's going to be a virtual reality Star Wars Galaxy's Edge game coming out for like Oculus and one other, I think, VR system, where you can roam around areas of Batuu that you can't go to in real life. that there's this whole story behind Batu. There's another cantina, like not Oga's, but overlooking the Falcon, like up on the area, like Cat, where we were looking at the droid that announced the fireworks. You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Where that droid is, there's another cantina up there, and there's a back room to the droid workshop that you can all explore in that. What do you think? Is that something that's going to push you to go and get an Oculus to get the VR to be able to see that?
No, that's very expensive. No. I remember
VR tech is very
the
pricey.
thing I was most excited about when they first started announcing VR stuff was when they had the Vader Immortal. That
Mhm.
sounded really cool, but that's even on I think that was for the first version of Oculus or something, and you could get it up to VR2.
Mhm.
But that was like tech that's like 4 years old now, and even that's evolved. So
Yeah.
But no, it's like, okay, I can go upstairs or backstairs and Droid Depot now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's similar for me. I think having a expansion to a place that to a place in the theme park could be interesting, but the way it might be locked down to just the most recent VR headsets, which are incredibly expensive still, I don't think it would really get anyone jumping up and thinking, yeah, let me order that now. It's just to see a VR version of Batu. Because I'm sure there's a lot of Star Wars fans who haven't even seen Batu IRL, if we can say it's in real life, but at the Disney parks.
True. Yeah. I think the theme behind it is that a lot of people that do go to the parks and have been there in real life is Batu is a really fleshed out world in ancillary materials. There are novels, there are comics, there are children's books about Oga, about Vi, about like all of the characters, the creatures, about the actual Black Spire itself, which was at one point a living being. It's not like a mountain, that's like a fossilized tree creature thing. And that's what this kind of panel was about, and it had all that. But then, like I said, is I sat there beyond that, and there were several, like 3 Star Wars panels in a row, and one of them was the announcement of Craig Miller, who joined us on the family vacation at one of the Boonta Eve special editions, as he announced that his new book, More Movie Memories. He had the Star Wars memory book at our last Boonta in 22, but he announced right there, it's like, hey, got the new book. Here it is. Here's a copy that'll be there. Got to announce, and we went semi-live with it. I think it was right when I walked out the door to that panel that I'm like, can I get a good picture of your book? And I will put it up on the channel. It's like, are you going to have those in Anaheim? It's like, yes. Woo, there you go. So that was a fun announcement that I got to like make on the internet. So that's a fun of it. But the other one is the other panel, I think in between Craig's panel and in between the Batu panel, was high-end Star Wars collectibles. And there were a lot of companies making high-end Star Wars collectibles now that are announcing new stuff. Like PCS was there, and they've got like a new bust coming out. There's companies like, I'm trying to get this right and not totally forget the names, like EFX and what is it? Sideshow? Which the one? But Regal Robot is another one. Regal Robot is coming out with like life-sized creature busts. Like there's a life-size Chewie bust and a life-size Chewie statue that they're coming out with. There's a life-size like Wampa taxidermy.
Does it come with upside down Luke?
Like They're doing a giant scale, 1/3 scale Maul bust with like interchangeable torsos, I think. So, and there's a gorgeous, like older Obi-Wan. Come on. Obi-Wan statue.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
it looks like it's straight out of the Kenobi novel or something.
Yeah, is the Kenobi novel? I think it's meant to be the Obi-Wan show.
Sure.
You know, so they've got that, and then let's show the PCS. The PCS Vader bust is crazy. Like you've got the lightsaber, and then like on the bottom there, the fighting, and then it goes all the way around. It's very different. So these are, small little announcements that you had to be in the room. They're making a Kylo's TIE interceptor, I think. Tons of stuff. So I'm still trying to get there. Yeah, there we go. There's our Acolyte figures just right in the case. And it's just like, oh, Hasbro all the time. But yeah.
The quality of the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures since 2016, just leading up to Rogue One, is suddenly shot up. I remember looking at the material released ahead of The Force Awakens and thinking, okay, it's nice to see 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures, brand new things to collect.
Mm-hmm.
But they looked still a little old fashioned. And I think it was the technology where some of the leaks ahead of the end of The Force Awakens and coming into The Last Jedi started coming out because people on the set of like Hasbro or something would have leaked a photo of Mark Hamill dressed in a white Jedi robe and grey cloak, standing in the center of, I've forgotten the name of the technology. I think it's anisotrope or something, where you essentially have 360 full round of cameras, digital cameras, essentially taking photos from every angle of the person, and you end up getting like a perfect scan of that human on a CAD CAM software that then they can do the 3D printing around and create action figures that have fantastic likenesses, even on a tiny 3 3/4 head. So the detail on the Hasbro figures has impressed me so much. The quality is still really high. And I just remember comparing it to, say, the Power of the Force figures in the 90s around the special editions.
And the articulation is way better than what we had. This was an amazing figure. At the time, it was groundbreaking. But again, that figure is not the figures that we had just a few years later by G.I. Joe. You've got more, the Star Wars figures have more of this articulation and this detail and this style now, which ironically, and they had this at San Diego as well, G.I. Joe has a thing called Super Sevens that they're making G.I. Joe figures, the classic characters, in the 70s Star Wars style. Like that with the straight legs and only the bendy at the hips and the things like that. Why?
I don't know. Hasbro has a Star Wars line like that, doesn't it? It's called something like retro or vintage. One of those buzzwords to get collectors thinking, "Oh, this is something I don't have," or maybe to get the most horrible, evil people in the world, the scab people who buy things en masse and just to shoot the supply down so that they can make massive markup and sell it to people who actually care. But there's a line of Star Wars figures, and it's kind of misleading because there are some that are printed in that kind of Kenner card and artwork material, like it's from 1980, but it will be an actual modern 3 3/4 inch, say Luke Skywalker on Bespin, let's say, and it will be fully articulated in the way the modern figures are, and then also using the same artwork and same everything other than the buzzword of, I think, vintage.
Yeah.
There'll be the same thing, but it'll be a Luke Skywalker deliberately looking like it's from 1976. So it has 3 points of articulation and looks like if you try and make it a fourth, it will break. I don't know why those are being produced. There must be somebody buying them, but every time
You
I
would think.
see them on a shelf, I kind of shudder. I think, I just
Well,
hope
I
it's not
mean,
like,
I'm looking at, and these Acolyte figures, these appear to be 70s style. Is they
oh
they
no,
look like straight leg, bend at the hip. That's how they're moving, and they've got real cloth cloaks on there. But oh yep, I'm looking and I'm
oh
zooming
no.
here in the background, and it is the retro collection series of Acolyte figures there. Now they do have Acolyte Black series out as well, but these are the ones that were in the cases. This kind of retro series, and I think these are sold as a set. It's one of those because they've done that for several things in the years. They've re-released at Downtown Disney in the Star Wars store and in the parks. You've got entire sets of figures, and then you've got that. But then
Right.
you also have the regular collection as well. There's Master Soul with the articulation. So
That looks
they're
great.
exactly what you're talking about, Gio, is they're putting out both sets for the collectors that want this one and the collectors that want that one. You can get them all.
You can. It's the excess of Disney, but it does make me kind of shudder though when I you don't really see things much on the shelves anymore, unfortunately. But I did quite recently. I managed to go to one of the comic book mega stores, Forbidden Planet, actually, that we've got over here, and it's one of the few places that you can always go and see the merchandise, high end or more affordable, and every single kind of printed comic and book you can imagine. And I was looking at the stack they had of Star Wars action figures, and I saw some of these retro vintage style ones that were like the Kenner 70s things, and I was thinking, some poor kid or maybe even adult is going to have an aunt or a mum or a wife or a sister gift him, could be her, gift them an action figure, and they'll be thinking, oh great, this is the character from the tiny scene at the back of the special edition that I always wanted. And I can just imagine somebody's disappointment trying very hard to be suppressed when they see it's like a non-articulating, Kenner-looking vintage style figure rather than the 3 3/4 that you can actually put into a position like that Master Soul. It looked great though, even just seeing it through the phone. So
I mean, it's people are going to get what they're. I think we've got to acknowledge that how many of these figures are actually made for children to play with anyway. They're gone beyond the price point of that. They're not.
Oh, definitely.
They're not for that. So, but that's the thing, and then cool announcements and things at San Diego further along is announcements that I didn't even know were there. There was did you guys know that there's a Superman animated semi-anime style cartoon?
No, I did not.
Apparently you didn't. Well, there is. And it's getting season 2.
Is that the My Adventures with Superman?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that very, very, very recently, maybe just like a week before SDCC, and I was thinking, where's that come from? Maybe it's something that got lost in the source when HBO Max HBO DC super acquisition mess happened, and they decided to write off an entire film. Which, I mean, we can be annoyed at Disney doing things, but that was wild with The Batgirl
with the
film.
Batgirl film just disappearing
Yeah.
in the ether and never being
Yeah.
allowed to see the light of day.
Insane.
I'll come back to that when we get to the Acolyte. You think I'm joking? I'm not. I'll roll it. I'll tie that back in.
Oh, she's
That's
back
okay.
in. She's into that.
Just when you thought we're back in.
They're getting a season 2. Here's your Star Wars adjacency. There's a Gremlins, the Tales of the Mogwai, I think.
Yeah, it's an animated show.
Yep, with Ming-Na Wen in there.
Nice.
And they're doing season 2 as well, and season 2 is taking them to the US. So expanding the world of the backstory of the Mogwai. That was fun panel. Ming-Na makes for a great panel. We're getting an animated version of Everybody Hates Chris. Everybody Still Hates Chris. Terry Crews. Terry Crews made for a fun panel. Lots of cool stuff. I'm just scrolling through the bazillions of pictures that I took of what kind of things there were there. Yeah. So let's hit. I think Marvel was the big announcements. Is Marvel was supposed to give us, all of us that won a thing, a free showing of Deadpool and Wolverine. Marvel, telling you, this does
most
not
displeased.
make up for it.
Okay.
This is all we got. Many people got
that.
What?
What that is.
This is a popcorn bucket, Gio. And it came with, and I had to empty this for the flight, obviously, home. But this came with branded water bottle. Okay. And a pin that has escaped me somewhere on the mess that is my desk. But yeah, is design. So we got us a popcorn bucket. But they premiered Deadpool and Wolverine to the lucky few people who got their way in. I think SDCC was Marvel with the big announcements. Is we knew Deadpool and Wolverine were coming. The lucky people that got in, they got to see the things. They got their premiere showing, and then we had all of our Marvel panels. The Marvel panel was the huge one. So somebody else want to talk about that one? The announcement from that?
I didn't watch it, but I know they did the Brave New World panel, and aired the new trailer, and we already knew Harrison Ford was in it. I did like the Easter egg from Scary Movie 3. That was nice. That they threw in there because what was it? Leslie Nielsen was the president in that movie, and he gestured to Harrison Ford as president. Now they flipped that around in this, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But let's see what else. The trailer is where they first showed that Ford was going to become Red Hulk, because that had just been hinted at or suggested, but now we know it's going to happen in the movie, so that's cool. I did get Winter Soldier vibes from that trailer. That was neat. And that Giancarlo Esposito is playing the character from the Serpent Society, which is something that Marvel teased that the third Captain America was going to be a long time ago, and then they're like, just kidding, it's Civil War. Which I don't know if that's the best marketing strategy, to get some people excited about something that's really great, just to say, oh, it's actually something else. So there's that trailer. They confirmed that there's definitely going to be a Shang-Chi sequel at some point.
We've got another announcement, a Star Wars adjacent announcement from Brave New World, and that Giancarlo Esposito will be playing Sidewinder in Brave New World.
But I mentioned he's in it. Yeah,
Giancarlo there, and then I don't know how I completely feel about them recasting Thunderbolt Ross from the original, but if you're going to do this movie, you had to do it. And Harrison was as animated as I have seen Harrison in I don't know how long ever for this panel.
Yeah, he was pretty animated promoting Indy last year too, which had been a long time since we've seen him that way. So it seems like he had a good time on this, and I especially like the interview where somebody asks him on the Comic-Con red carpet about anchor beings from Deadpool and Wolverine. Who's the anchor being in your Earth 616? He's like, what are you talking about? He says, well, your Marvel universe takes place on 616. He's like, I don't know. They don't pay me first. He just walks away.
And that's back to being good old Harrison. Is like, I really don't know what is going on in this. I show up, I do my thing, and I go home.
Other Marvel things we learned is that turns out Shang-Chi was supposed to have a huge role in the Kang Dynasty. He was going to be one of the central characters, and then that didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen is because the big announcement, which we might as well just get to, is they're bringing back the Russo brothers with their writers, Marcus McFeely, which is good.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
And instead of Kang Dynasty, they're dumping that. They're still keeping Secret Wars, but it's going to be Avengers Doomsday. And they said they're going to cast Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, which I don't know, because it's like, it feels like, okay, you just released a movie called Deadpool and Wolverine where you're making fun of the multiverse thing and saying, look, this multiverse thing, it's really not working. And your plan to deal with that is to do a deeper dive and to like dig that hole deeper, because certainly if you're having Robert play the role, it's going to be like an alternate reality Tony Stark, right? I mean, otherwise, which is going to rob the character of his own identity as Victor Von Doom if you just cast Tony Stark to play him, because that's kind of what it is. It's going to put another spin on it. So I don't know if that's the best idea. I thought, I wasn't really excited about it. And stranger still, the big thing which caught my eye is that Robert gave an interview recently where he said that they've been working on this for a year. So, which means that even before they fired Jonathan Majors, they were planning on doing this and jumping ship on the whole Kang thing, which was a real surprise because that all didn't go down until last December when they parted ways with him. So it's like, okay, so they knew I guess after the collapse of Quantumania and how badly that was received and whatever, they already decided, I guess, that, okay, this Kang thing just isn't working. I don't know what they were going to plan to do with them at that point, since they had not yet had any issues with Majors. So that was a real surprise to learn that, because it's still up in the air as to what their excuse is going to be for what becomes of all the Kangs. I take it Dr. Doom is just going to wipe them out, you know, kind of like when Thanos shows up in Infinity War and just kills Loki.
So did you know that this storyline, that I'm presuming that this is what they're doing? Like, I didn't make it in for the Marvel panel because you would have had to camp out overnight and like miss so much of San Diego to stay in the room all day to be in the room for the Marvel panel. I could not do that. But
not wise decision.
So Tony Stark as Dr. Doom, it has precedent. This is a comic storyline. This is an alternate universe thing that has already been out there, where like Tony Stark went to college with Victor Von Doom, and Von Doom like steals, I think, the Iron Man idea and suit thing from Tony, and then Tony thus becomes Dr. Doom. So one can assume that is where we're going with that.
Yeah.
So it's an acceptable, but that's really kind of an obscure way to go, thing to do.
Well, the whole thing feels a bit desperate. Like, this phase 4 and 5 isn't working. People weren't responding to Kang, so it's like, well, even though we're not going to, they had not yet decided to fire him yet. It's like, well, let's just scrap the character. And what worked last time? Oh, the Russos, Marcus McFeely, they did great movies. Oh, Robert, everybody's been wanting Robert to come back. And Feige even teased that it's possible that, Chris Evans could come back, either not necessarily as Captain America, but somebody else. So it's like, okay, so you're basically getting into sort of like your greatest hits now, which is like maybe it's time to just reboot the whole universe and start with a separate continuity. It's like, okay, you told your whole Infinity Saga thing. Maybe start with different characters and throw some of those new ones back in there, because it feels like it's an about face. It's like we're figuratively speaking, we're going back in time to bring back what worked in the past, what excited people in the past, to do that instead of pushing forward. Because I say the same thing, like a rising tide raises all ships. Just because a lot of Phase 4 or 5 movies weren't working, just bring in the right people with the right scripts and directors who could elevate the material and elevate the characters you already have. But who knows? And maybe Shang-Chi will still have a central role in the Doomsday movie, because they haven't announced a Shang-Chi sequel officially, but they're saying, oh yeah, he's still definitely Shang-Chi, so maybe he will be in that.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was very interesting that they were already planning this before they jumped ship on Majors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got to. Here's the thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe: getting a big bad for your Marvel movie, and getting a big bad that's not a humongous climactic. It's like they do in the comics. Is the Infinity Gauntlet comic was a gigantic crossover event that happened and affected the entire Marvel universe. You've done that. Where do you go from there? Like, oh, here's Doc Ock. Meet. Oh, Spider-Man smacks him around and you're done. You could get the Sinister Six and just big team up, but that's going to involve a whole lot more movies to bring everybody back in. You can't go directly to Galactus. If you go directly to Galactus, wherever do you go after that?
Isn't that what they're doing in Fantastic Four, though?
I would hope that they're just kind of setting it up.
Because I know they've cast Ralph Ineson as Galactus for that film.
I would hope, again, that they're setting it up. There's ways to bring this entire thing. Is there's a really cool several issues, where Galactus brings the entire Marvel universe to this like space station thing, and everybody meets everybody crossover. That would be a way to bring in your X-Men. Boom, there is. So I'm hoping Fantastic Four just kind of sets up Galactus and will be our next Avengers Endgame eventually. But you got to have somebody in there ahead of that. And I think they will be extremely leery to do that with the Silver Surfer, since how that went before.
It is funny that you mentioned the X-Men, though, because apparently the reason they put Monica Rambeau in the X-Men universe at the end of the Marvels was because the plan was in the Kang Dynasty that the Avengers were going to go get her, like save her or whatever. That's how they're to help them in the fight against Kang, and that's how they're going to meet the X-Men. The X-Men were going to help them, and that's how they were going to cross over in their universe. But now that's kind of up in the air as to what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, you don't know. Is bringing in the Fantastic Four, and we know that they've cast the Fantastic Four, and they've cast different people in the Fantastic Four. They could have done a lot of things. You say you want to bring Chris Evans back. Okay, make Julian McMahon or whatever, Dr. Doom or Victor Von Doom to opposite Tony Stark as Dr. Doom. Bring Julian McMahon in there, and then, Chris Evans shows up as Johnny Storm. Oh, wait, no. It's like, wait, wrong universe. We're going somewhere else. It's almost that level of cameo that you can get. It's almost that I hope they don't get to the point where, let's make a big round room and have this big round thing going around and show pictures of Adam West and, Nicolas Cage as Superman and just anything that we've ever done, and just the travesty of the Flash movie.
That actually really works for that climax, because the whole idea of that is that it's trying to tell the audience, see, don't you hate the multiverse too? Aren't you over this whole concept now?
Yeah, but you throw in things and then you leave out things that we all wanted, which is where is Stephen Amell and where is Grant Gustin? Because that's the real Flash that we want, not Ezra.
I think Ezra's the best actor out of all of them, though, ironically, which is too bad because he did a really great job in that movie.
Okay, we're getting way down the rabbit hole, but I was like, I don't want my Flash to be that the millennial screw-uppy weird. No, he was no. That is not my Flash. I respect the fact that there are people now. I am not the demographic that they're shooting at anymore. Not that. There are the people who like that Flash because they are that Flash, and that's their. Doesn't work for me anymore, and it makes me sad. But yeah, okay, I get it, and I'll give you that. But you did give me Michael Keaton as Batman, so I still love you for that.
And I thought they did something meaningful with him in that movie as well, so I kind of like that.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that they've rebooted the universe and again, because I would have liked to see, I think, for as little as she was used, the actress that played Supergirl, and that was a good take on it and a nice extra side story, and I would have liked to seen more of her in that role, but that's neither here nor there. But we will see how the Marvel universe and the things go with bringing Downey Jr. back. Is it's either going to be amazing or it's going to be a train wreck. It's just it will either bring us out of the superhero fatigue or the Marvel universe fatigue that's kind of building in, or it's going to push it over the edge. And we didn't even talk about but this was, I guess, announced before, is Star Wars adjacency of Pedro in Fantastic Four in this whole universe and things, which I'm just like, why did you recast Reed Richards again?
I don't see him as Reed Richards either, so I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm finding it hard to see.
Crazy about most of that cast. I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. Although I didn't really even search these out, but I ended up just seeing quite a few clips of Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal being interviewed, and together they seem to have really good chemistry on screen. That seems almost organic, like they just really, really get along with each other and are kind of on the same page. So I think that could bode well for them now shooting it, because I think they were going into the first week of shooting straight after SDCC. So after that huge big weekend where they had all the buzz around them and Hall H and Marvel and so much news coming out, that they're going into the film, I think, in quite a strong place in terms of just their characters. And it's Marvel's first family, and they're doing a retro version of the Fantastic Four. So it'll be interesting seeing how you can get the kind of superhero aesthetic in a kind of more old-fashioned time period. None of the MCU films have really done anything looking much into the past beyond, I guess, Captain Marvel, but that was only the 90s, so not even that far removed.
Well, yeah, but again,
Captain America, the first Avenger,
and again, you're feeling you're going into weird and uncharted territory because you've already had 2 Fantastic Four movies that you're just kind of rebooting again. And they were kind of your classic, like 90s, early 2000s superhero-y movies. And you've done this. You had the original Chris Evans Fantastic Four, Johnny Storm, Michael Chiklis, and that, for its lacks, was a superhero movie. And then you've rebooted that with newer, younger, more hip, more of the time characters in the second one with, who was that? Was that Michael B. Jordan in that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Miles Teller.
So
Kate Mara. Yeah, well, the second reboot, I think, is the one that everyone hopes they forget and don't want to talk about. I think the first 2005 Fantastic Four film was quite fun. It can live in its own place in movie history. I think you could go back to that film now and still enjoy it.
Yeah, I watched that movie again, and even Rise of the Silver Surfer, and
it has a kind of B movie feel, but it's almost a deliberate one, and I think that makes it watchable. The characters seem sort of aware without being obnoxiously self-aware, and everyone looks like they're having fun, even though the film's not really has nothing of substance, but it doesn't need to. It's just a popcorn B movie with a Marvel paint job over it. It's fun.
And here's my take on that one. I know we've gone way down the rabbit hole, but if you read early Fantastic Four, that's how that movie feels. It really was that kind of cheesy 60s banter back and forth between Reed Richards and The Thing. And I think Michael Chiklis did an amazing grumpy, very basic.
He was great. He was fantastic.
They did not make a movie necessarily for their time. They kind of did and kind of brought it a little bit into the 90s-ish. But they were doing 60s Fantastic Four. The way it was written by, Stan and crew. There's something to be said for that. And, does it hold up to a younger audience today? No. Does it hold up for those of us who saw it then and still see it now? I think so. You got to ask a lot for a show that is that old now, and we have to consider that a movie made in 1990 is now 30 years old. Heaven for frickin' bid. But there are very few things that hold up. Like I started this weekend for the very first time started showing my 5-year-old nephew Batman the Animated Series. Still holds up. Damn it. Holds up for a whole new generation right there. Anybody who was involved in that 100%. Is who needs to be making TV today.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mark Hamill. But, that's it.
Picked a good project. He definitely picked the good ones. So speaking of all this stunt casting, if it wasn't Robert Downey Jr. and you had the ability to bring anyone into the Doctor Doom role from any part of the world in any movie or TV show, even if however famous or unheralded, who would you like to have seen as Victor Von Doom?
That's impossible to say based on it depends on what the movie's going to be. Just don't do Robert, because nobody's ever going to think of him as Dr. Doom. They're just going to think evil Tony Stark, and it's never going to be his own character. Yeah. It's like it's got to be the best actor for the material written. But even with the comic book presidents for the Tony Stark thing, it's like, is it like the Russos even said, oh, Dr. Doom's so integral to the Secret Wars story, just to Marvel in general. It's like, yeah, that's why you should let him have his fully owned identity.
Yeah. It just feels like they shrink the universe by bringing someone back, especially someone who's so iconic.
Let's see. I mean, there's so many ways to go with that. Is like, what do you want to do with the franchise and the movie? Are you making it younger for today's audience, and you're going to have kind of the Fantastic Four origin from the beginning? Are they so much younger than the MCU? Are they just starting, or is the team older and established? If you're doing younger and kind of the beginnings of Fantastic Four, like we saw in previous movies, Miles Teller as Dr. Doom is going to stay with me, Kat. I saw that face. Stay with me. I'm like, can he do it if it's written well for him? Yes. Would he automatically bring the, 13 to 27 young ladies that are just have seen Maverick 47 times, and then their mothers who have seen Maverick 47 times. Yes, he brings those people into the MCU immediately.
Miles
That's why
Teller.
you don't do stunt casting like that to bring in fans of other
Yeah.
properties.
But remember
He
what
was Reed
else
Richards in the
was
2015 one.
What else related to the Fantastic Four was Miles Teller in?
Related to the Fantastic Four?
What else?
What?
Was he not in the reboot?
Well, yeah. You said
Yeah.
other than the Fantastic
Oh,
Four.
no. Sorry, I didn't mean other than the Fantastic Four. Yeah, is Miles Teller
he's Reed
already
Richards.
a part of so you bring anybody who actually liked that movie, because they're got to be there somewhere. Those people are there. I hear them breathing. They're out there. Yeah.
Do you? I just hear tumbleweeds.
You can bring that, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek. It's a fun thing. They're kind of can be doing what they're doing with RDJ, but it's we can bring that and we can go. But now he's, I don't know. That's my take on that. If you want to bring them in, if you want to bring in the stunt casting for somebody who's going to bring people to the MCU, because look, they got to be looking to re-energize the MCU because it's getting and
Speaking of which, I think that's why D23 was pretty bad this year.
yes, let's get to D23.
Yeah, it's like they announced a grand total of 2 original movies. Everything else was just an avalanche of sequels. And it's like most of them we already knew about, so they didn't even count as announcements. So I don't know why they brought them there, but it's like, is this the direction that Disney, they're just done? Like, oh, the Renaissance was a neat thing in the late 80s and the 90s, and now we've just conceded defeat. We're just not gonna try new things anymore. I mean, is that kind of what's going on at Disney? I mean, I guess.
Got to get a new CEO that tells people we need to do new things and we need to find a new way. And you know, the Disney Renaissance was that period where we're making new properties for Disney. It's not we're reinventing the wheel. We're stealing from like classic fairy tales and whatnot, but we're stealing ones that we haven't stole before. We're not rebooting freaking Snow White, which, oh wait, that's what we're doing now. Damn it. But it's let's go back to some classic tales. And I guess all of these things too are with a different lens because we love the Disney Renaissance now. Many people loved the Disney Renaissance then. I for sure did. But when I saw Disney's The Little Mermaid, I knew nothing about Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid, and there was this whole group of older people going, what the hell is this? This is not The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, The Little Mermaid's a darker, sadder story. I actually saw a recent modern set live-action Polish adaptation called The Lure that was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was very much like that. But it's kind of what Disney does, right? They take these dark stories like Cinderella, they put a happy twist on it.
And it works when they do it, because guess what happened? When they remade Mulan and they tried to make Mulan more like actual Mulan, did that movie go over well? No. Happy-go-lucky animated Eddie Murphy as a dragon? Yes.
Yeah. As soon as he knew Mushu wasn't going to be anything like the iconic superstar performance that we got in the 1999 animated Mulan, you just knew the remake was not going to get anything else right, because it fundamentally misunderstands the feeling and the aesthetic and the energy that the animated film had, which is what makes it an animated classic, not a botched remake in the 20s on streaming.
And when you do the stunt casting too, because both of those movies, like the newer version of that movie, the new Little Mermaid and the new live action Mulan, is you put Ming-Na Wen in it, and you put Jodie Benson in it, but for like that much is no more, because that's what we wanted, or that's what I wanted.
Yeah, I will say one thing though. Just on the stunt casting of Robert Downey Jr., I feel like they were going to pull one critically acclaimed, breakout, career-defining performing actor from Oppenheimer. They pulled the wrong guy. Cillian Murphy as Victor Von Doom would be way more interesting than Robert Downey Jr. He even has the kind of look of Victor Von Doom from certain stories of the Fantastic Four, and just him being a supervillain in Marvel. And after having him be someone so conflicted and complicated, and in such an understated but still superstar role in Oppenheimer, I think that would have even brought people who had no interest in Marvel potentially into thinking, Cillian Murphy's actually accepted a role in something that's a massive franchise. Given how he chooses only amazing things before, this must be something with pedigree. But anyway,
I'm gonna one up you. Watch Cat's face right now. Everybody, watch Cat's face. If you want to go there, is what you do is you totally go all in, and you get Margot Robbie as Victoria Von Doom.
No, Dave. No, we don't. We do not. Meanwhile, they aired a sizzle reel trailer for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, a movie which only exists because Disney found out in January that, you just shelved the Rey movie. What? But we told you needed to get a movie out by May 2026. We need to get Star Wars back in the theaters. Well, we had to show movie. Yeah, you have 1 week to get something going, and now it's Mandalorian Grogu.
I still want to know what it is. Is we see the Razor Crest back? That was a big deal. Is it a new Razor Crest? Is it a new one? Are they going back in? Are they going backwards in time for this? I want to see Mandalorian and Grogu buddy cop movie of the time that they spent and what really made the two of them so bonded before Din Djarin gives him up to Luke. Is this what this is? I don't know. I'm not sure yet.
Yes. And then the last piece of news was The Acolyte.
Well, it's not the last. We can cover some other Disney things. I
didn't catch many of the D20. I mean, I just saw a sequel.
I think many of the D23 things that came out are Disney parks related, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But let's go ahead and hit The Acolyte. Whew. Go ahead, Kat. You start with that.
So the fact that Disney has pulled the product page from their website tells you that the news is likely very true. That Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and Deadline have been reporting that the show has been canceled. That's a ratings thing. They spent $180 million on the show. Some say even higher, and you need to keep your existing subscribers as well as add new ones to justify those budgets. If you don't, then you get axed. We saw that happen to Willow, and it went a step further with Willow, where Disney's analytics told them that, nobody's actually watching the show, even though it's been sitting on Disney Plus for 6 months. So they pulled it from the service. Same thing. I don't think that'll happen to The Acolyte. I think the Star Wars name on it will be enough to keep it on the service. I don't think it's going to get pulled, but it got canceled. And contrary to what some people are ludicrously trying to say, it has nothing to do with the bigots review bombing it before the movie came out. Or before the show came out. You had 11 million people tuned into this show for the first week for the 2-episode premiere. That's a lot of people. That's a huge chunk if this is a box office thing.
Yeah, it's a strong start.
Really strong start, but it fell out of the top 10 after the first week, and barely any of those 11 million tuned back in for the next 5 weeks. But they did come back for the finale to get it into the 10th spot in the top 10. And I'm betting that had to do with the fact that by then the Darth Plagueis cameo news was making the rounds. And it's a funny thing is when they put Plagueis in the show, I thought clearly they knew that was going to get a big rise out of fans. And I thought, well, maybe you should have written the show around that character. And as Master Darth Tenebris, I mean, we'd be there for that. But that's, again, a show overall where you told us it was going to be a dark side show, and then you pulled the rug out from under us, and it's actually a Jedi show.
Yeah.
I see a lot of commonalities with it and Willow, where you have mostly a bunch of one-dimensional characters with no personality, interchangeable. In Willow's case, it was a bunch of interchangeable 20-somethings, except for Willow Ugfoot himself, and then the character of Thraxus Borman, who's really great. Here, it's like, I liked Saul.
Yes.
I liked
very good performance.
Yeah, Lee Jun-se gave a good performance. Carrie-Anne Moss gave a good performance, but she's barely in it. Good character. And Manny Jacinto gave a good performance, and that was about it. I think the rest of the actors...
Amazing. I wish we had gotten way more of Eunice as Naka.
Yeah, I think the rest of the actors weren't any good, and I think that's because the material and the director, the scripts just kind of let them down because there wasn't much there. Like, we have an 8-episode series, and we learned next to nothing about Khmer. It's like by the 6th episode, I might be a Sith. And by the 7th episode, we already guessed that he was Venestra's apprentice. It was like, you had an 8-episode series roughly totaling 5 hours of footage, and we know nothing about this character. Why? I don't know. Even though May was mostly, that May's been kind of, she left the Jedi. She's been, or not with it. She was never with the Jedi. She's been on her own. She's not been kind of with the Sith. She should have a distinct personality compared to Osha, who's been with the Jedi, but they're both very much, I mean, no pun intended, they're the same person, basically. Like, the personality, there's no personality there.
We said long ago it would have made the entire show better if they didn't actually put them in 2 bodies. If this was like a sleepwalking or whatever, it was the same person doing both of the things.
Right.
That would have been interesting.
Kalnaka was a character I was excited for, too, because, we've never seen a Wookiee Jedi before. What's that's going to be like? Not in terms of fighting, but just as a character. Yeah. And no, we don't get to see that. It looked to almost like HD video or something. Like, if you take any scene from like Succession or House of the Dragon and put it on a movie theater screen as a commercial and have an audience which doesn't know any better, they would think from the visual quality that, wow, that's a movie.
Yeah.
Not so with The Acolyte or the Book of Boba Fett or Ahsoka or Obi-Wan. They all, for some reason, the looks of these shows lately have just been very weak sauce. And Obi-Wan's another show where it wasn't really about Obi-Wan. It was about Reva and about Leia. You could have swapped out Obi-Wan for any other runaway Jedi you wanted, and you'd have the same story, which is part of the reason why I really didn't like that show. Because it's like, it's called Obi-Wan, we're here for Obi-Wan, and it's not really Obi-Wan. And so with this, it's just more of those same problems. I looked, and again, we have a lot of really great major lead writers credited for each episode, but they're not staying on for all the episodes. So you have this problem that in order to maintain consistency, you have to have this conformity to this really bland kind of formula. So it just kind of, like, even Andrew Stanton from Pixar, great guy, Pixar wrote one of the episodes with 2 other guys. And keep in mind, you have a bunch of uncredited staff writers on top of this. So it's like, I don't, like, clearly this was not the Leslie Headland showrunner thing. It kind of got away from that and became this other thing. And so, and as I mentioned earlier, when you guys brought up Batgirl, I'm a DC fan. I was excited to see Batgirl, but that was only meant to be a streaming movie as well. It was supposed to be a $70 million budget. The directors asked for an additional $20 million. Everybody who saw it at the so-called funeral screening at the studio, including people who didn't have a stake in it, like James Gunn saw it, a couple of the DC guys saw it, Jim Lee saw it. They all watched it, and they said that it looked like everybody was in cosplay, that the script was rushed. It looked really cheap, like cheap facade backgrounds, like a cheap backlot thing. Like, don't put out something that hurts the brand. And Zaslav said, we're not making DC movies for streaming anymore. DC deserves to be on the big screen where it belongs. And if it hurts the brand, it's not worth putting out there. It's worth swallowing that on. And I feel the same thing could be said for Obi-Wan, for Book of Boba Fett, and definitely for The Acolyte. Of course, they weren't going to do that because they thought they had winners here. So do you renew a show even though it has plot threads like dangling if it's going to hurt the brand by continuing this same kind of weak sauce thing they've been doing lately with these shows? I don't think so. I think even Mandalorian season 3 we saw suffered. It was very cannibalized partly and then rushed. So I don't know what's going on over there, but
well, here's my take on the announcement, and not even commenting on the show necessarily, but we've done that, and I'm sure we'll do that again and again because there's a lot. But the announcement is why? Why did you make this announcement? Headland herself had said, this is the one. This is a self-contained story, which totally wasn't. But the question is, was that taken away from her at some point? And they said, leave these things open and don't answer them because we want the potential of something else. But I was like, Acolyte was supposed to be a limited series. It was the thing. Why do you need to make an announcement that there won't be a season 2? Obi-Wan had problems and did not do as well as people wanted. Have they announced that there won't be a season 2? No. Is there supposed to be a season 2? Also no. Book of Boba Fett. Have we said that there will be a Book of Boba Fett with more chapters? No. Have they made an official announcement that that's not going to happen? No. Why did they say anything or leak anything about this? Why did you leak this with those toys coming out? Why did you leak this the 2 days after this leaked? There are brand new Acolyte Black series and an entire end cap display in my local Walmart with Saul's lightsaber and Yord's lightsaber and all sorts of different things. Why did you choose to say anything or have someone to say anything? Or if someone did say anything, why is the new news not Disney shit cans who leaked the thing about it?
I think a difference there is also that Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan did tell complete stories. There weren't really cliffhangers, not many cliffhangers anyway. Like, yeah, we don't know what happened to Reva, but that could be brought up anytime. With the whereas with Book of Boba Fett, it's kind of okay, Boba's still running Mos Espa, whatever. But with Acolyte, I think it's because there were so many dangling plot threads, and like Dave said, it clearly changed at some point where it clearly was no longer a limited series, that maybe there was more chatter around the studio, because I didn't feel it was Lucasfilm making an announcement. Whoever their sources are there clearly was hearing chatter going on that, yeah, this is definitely not happening anymore, and somebody was talking out of turn. But then which is why I said it seems confirmed once they pulled the product page on Disney's official website. Now, was that Lucasfilm making that decision, or was that Disney making that decision? Because again, the ratings were not what they needed to justify spending that kind of money to continue the show.
I just also find it so hard to believe that turnaround happened in such a limited amount of time. I mean, I guess I know it because the Lucasfilm Pavilion at San Diego was Acolyte centric.
Well, maybe nobody's been watching it on Disney Plus since it ended, and Disney said, "You really like with Willow, like no," because to make the drastic thing with Willow, I mean, it's one thing if they decide they don't want to do another season. It's another thing to pull it off your server, which tells you that nobody was watching reruns on that show. And so even though it had only been a month since the finale, I mean, if that's the kind of situation that they're having there, Disney may have gotten ahead of themselves. And like I said, somebody must have been hearing chatter or talking out of turn.
Well, here's the other potential question is too, and this may be a thing that ties back into Batgirl.
Yeah.
And ties into the Halcyon and ties it. If they pull it off the streaming service, if they completely remove it, can they take it as a tax write-off if they never address it ever again? And is that becoming too easy, too soon, and too common of a thing that companies are allowed to do?
Well, they can't do it with Acolyte because that's already been released. So that's you can't take the tax write-off after you've already released that to the public.
Disney's got some damn good lawyers.
Not that good. That's that tax code. That's not. They can't fight that one. Even, like even. Like I'm certain if HBO had been allowed to do that to demonstrate, they may have tried to get away with that, but no, that's once it's out there that the tax write-off is something that's been proven over detrimental, but it has to be before that. It's like, well, they can't say that, well, the ratings weren't good enough, so let's take the tax write-off afterwards. It's like, really? But you pushed all this merchandise, all this stuff already. Because again, some of it's been selling. So
isn't that what they did with the Halcyon?
Well, the Halcyon failed because they were just obscenely greedy with the absurd prices they were charging. And even when they lowered the prices, they didn't lower them enough to attract more people to
Yeah, like it's the concept of the lawyer and Hammond talking at Jurassic Park. Maybe we'll have a coupon day or something. It's like, this is not just a place for the super rich. It's like kind of is.
But they don't have all the power. The power of one, the power of two. Oh, maybe not power of two.
Power of many. The power of many was not enough to stop
power of one.
the acolyte.
The power of Manny Jacinto.
I mean, it was that the middle part of that series was a showcase for him, and I feel bad that the actors that did manage to do something reasonable with what little they had are just, I don't know if they're ever going to feel a positive impact on this.
Well, I am hoping
a comedic actor,
the starring vehicle, if not with Disney, with somebody soon. And I think he's already doing something else with Disney. He's going to be in something. But
yeah, he has a lot of range, and I highly recommend, if anyone hasn't watched The Good Place. It is one of the more novel comedy dramas in the last kind of 10 years. And his character in that, he's a NFL-obsessed Florida pool boy, who's as dopey and gormless as can be. And then you see him as a potential apprentice to Darth Plagueis or something. That's quite a range for an actor. So it's worth checking out previous roles he's had and whatever he's in the future. We already know that Lee Jung-jae was the reason why Squid Game connected with millions of people around the world. And again, if you haven't watched Squid Game, it's worth using The Acolyte at least as a place to refer you to other material that you might really enjoy, because it did have a lot of talent behind it and involved in it.
And the same thing you've got with like Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie-Anne Moss is one of the triumvirate of actors that really made the Matrix, at least some of the Matrix, enjoyable. Yeah. So, there's another level of you want stunt casting is, if Keanu Reeves as Darth Revan had appeared in like the Acolyte, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I don't.
I find it crazy how that became something that people wanted online, because I remember playing Knights of the Old Republic, and this is a true story. I can go take a screenshot of the file if needed. But the first time I ever played Knights of the Old Republic, I picked a character. The 18 male faces you had to pick your character if you made yourself a male hero character. I picked the one that I thought looked the most like Neo.
Yes.
And he happened to have the longest length of black hair you were allowed, which was literally just shoulder length. Mm-hmm. And if you go back and look at that character I made as what became Revan, he kind of looks like John Wick. That's all I'll say. But
we missed a kind of a San Diego announcement. I don't know if you've heard this. There's a new comic book series modeled on Keanu Reeves called Berserker.
Oh, I think it's his own. I think he's written it himself.
Yeah. He's super involved because he's there. It is the character like is him-ish. And written in there, and he's been promoting that as well. He's making the rounds with that.
It looks fantastic. I saw that on the shelf in the comic book store I visited recently. I think it's available. I definitely saw the word Berserker in that kind of print that it had.
I've seen they had a big sign at San Diego. I've seen Keanu was just at the Mohican Sun, I think. He was at at Terrificon.
Okay.
So things.
I
So
see. It was first launched March 2021, so this is a continuation of that character and that story
okay,
from
I
from
had
a
not
12.
heard about it before. San Diego is well. There you go.
Yeah,
They're
that's why it's
all,
worth showing up.
but
But yeah, just
go
back
ahead.
to the Acolyte very quickly. I'm still really mad at this decision that's happened because to me this is the same thing with same old song and dance from 2017 when people didn't like The Last Jedi. Some people hated it, some people loved it. Critics seemed to love it. People were thinking the fandom has broken in two, and then the result of that was you had Disney not doing anything for Lucasfilm with the Solo film, which actually turns out to be one of the better
Yeah.
Star Wars films in the last couple of years, and they allowed that film to completely sink um, in the aftermath of Infinity War. They let that film come out 2 weeks after Infinity War came out. Avengers: Infinity War was early May. I think it was around May the 4th, May the 5th.
No, it was
2018, was it not?
I think it was 5 or 6 weeks before that. So there was a pretty big cushion between the two of them. Just that Infinity War had a lot of replay value, and there
Oh
was
yeah,
not much marketing for Solo.
there was basically nothing. I was really into following trailers and announcements at that time a lot, and I try to do it less and less now because I think it spoils content. But back then, there was one trailer I saw of Solo, and I was like in tune with everything at the time. So I thought it was awful to everyone involved in Solo how little support that film seemed to have. And then since then, Star Wars has had this problem of, well, not being able to be on the big screen again, and then basically overcorrecting and overreaching according to potential perception that they feel might be for or against a project or for or against decisions they've made. So with episode 8, it's The Last Jedi. It's, you know, what Rian Johnson decided to go, the direction he took with his characters, but then you can't blame that on one single person because he went ahead with the whole of Lucasfilm production and Disney behind him saying, okay, yes, you can write and direct entirely your own Star Wars film with its own kind of feeling, even though it didn't gel with The Force Awakens and the Star Wars reboot feel of Episode 7. And then since then, we've just been bouncing back and forth like a weird kind of pendulum swinging or a pinball machine that just keeps going bananas and isn't settling anywhere, where it constantly feels like Disney's afraid of how people will perceive Star Wars and then really, really desperate and quick to try and course correct, even when that's sometimes not needed, but more importantly is just very cowardly as a creative endeavor.
Well, that's the
And
thing. They've been firing all those
so
creative.
disappointing.
How many directors have they announced that who would have been great, who they
There's
fired?
this constant turnover. Like it's not even. I feel like turnover is too generous because that feels like people would have produced something and then been replaced, but people haven't had that chance. They've just been announced and then de-announced a few months later.
Right. And then re-announced with Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, well,
de-announced, re-announced.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, is it a pendulum? Is it a pinball machine where you just can't get a score because it just keeps bouncing around and we don't know where it's going to land next? But I just feel really bummed out by the decision, and also, yeah, very, very disappointed. And I'm somebody who was immensely disappointed by The Acolyte. If we look at it as an individual project, it had so much going for it potentially that it really didn't get even close towards. It still had some strong elements.
And so much goodness of it at Star Wars Celebration London. So much of the excitement of that celebration was the talk of the Acolyte, was the actors coming out on the live stage.
Yeah.
And from that to go to where we are.
Yeah, I think exactly. That you saying that makes it even more of a contrast and how jarring it is because that's a year and 3 months ago, and you've got a time where it was a fever pitch of goodwill around this, and people were genuinely thrilled. And you know the kind of diffuse descriptions people had of like, oh, it's kind of like a martial arts kung fu style adventure in the High Republic. It's an era we've not seen before. I also feel really bad for, other than everyone who's involved in the show, for better or worse, at this announcement that they're axing a season 2, if it was even planned, is all the people who have been trying to tell other people to read the High Republic.
Yeah,
read the High Republic.
These
characters.
High Republic.
This is it's shooting yourself in the foot in terms of a company that you're going so much of the prestige of Star Wars and the way Disney's made its multi-millions again and again is on the goodwill of fans. And then I just feel like you're turning around and shooting half of them in the face after they've invested so much time and energy into following one multimedia project that you had, which is the High Republic novels and comic books. And hopefully that'll still happen and you won't get cancellation of any of those stories, because that would be awful. But I just quite aggrieved at the kind of higher ups Disney decision making here.
Here's the thing: Disney and Lucasfilm have essentially said nothing. They could be sitting back. You talked about cowardly, and I think this would kind of be it. But they could be sitting back and watching the reaction to this leak and waiting to go, oh, no, we were never going to do that. Somebody spoke out of turn, or somebody just made that up.
So why did they delete the product page from Disney's store?
Well, I didn't say they weren't sitting behind it fueling the fire, but I'm just like, oh, we're waiting to see what the outrage is, and then we can over here be like, no.
Right. But then again, it's the same problem. We're waiting to see what the crazies who have the least amount going on in their life and the most amount of time to spit vile and type horrendous things online and publish that and share that and harass the creators, will let them have an impact on our decisions.
That is called the internet generation, sir.
That's not who they're listening to on this show. Like I said, like they're looking at that big drop off after that strong start. That's what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Like, why did they're probably asking themselves, why didn't they come back for episode 3 of the series?
Well, and it's a lot of things. It's cost versus reward. We've said repeatedly on the show that the Acolyte, that was a big giant budget for what
we don't know.
We appeared to see, and where did it go? What else was there? Was there more? Did it get monkeyed with? Is there a headland cut out there somewhere that's different? But we may never know. We may know. It may go away. We don't know. This is the thing. Like I said, we've gone like an hour 23 here, so we're way over, and we haven't even gotten into all the things. So I'm sure we will be revisiting some of these things at some point. We hadn't even talked about Skeleton Crew coming out there. We haven't talked about some of the big D23 announcements, which are not really overly Star Wars, but the things at Disney parks announcements, that was a lot of D23 right there. And we didn't, like we said, get to Deadpool and Wolverine because somebody hasn't watched it. I got a popcorn bucket, and I'm hostile about the popcorn bucket, and I haven't been back. So, San Diego Comic-Con, it's your fault that I haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet.
Exactly.
But
invoice tickets to everyone who missed out now.
Exactly. There you go. That's what I want. But yeah, if there are specific announcements that you out there watching this, as it airs, the specific D23 announcements you want us to talk about on the show, please put it right there in the comments. We will get those, and we will look back at that. And also, you can always remember that we do have our there's an email address that you can just mail us and check out what it is, and I'm scrolling through and looking for it right now. You can always email us at the virtual cantina network at gmail.com, but us specifically, you can email at vcunifyingforce@gmail.com. If there's parts of the San Diego announcements that we missed, there's D23 announcements that we haven't yet gotten to, let us know, and we will be overly happy to get into that stuff at a later date. So, closing thoughts and things.
Yeah, the Skeleton Crew trailer again looks cinematic. We'll see how it. That's coming soon, isn't it?
That's December, so not
December.
soon-ish. So we'll have plenty of time to. We may even do like a deep dive on the Skeleton Crew trailer show.
Oh yeah, they're gonna probably have another trailer too before then.
Yeah.
So
there's some time to get into that. But it does exist. It is out there. After we've been hearing about it and hearing about it and hearing about it, they really are going. We might really get there. So we're looking forward to December. Keep watching the Virtual Cantina Network, because we are doing kind of reviews of what's going out there. Is the Virtual Cantina Network watch along has been doing like first episode of a season, last episode of a season. We've done Mandalorian season 1. We're starting Mandalorian season 2. We're going to go through Book of Boba Fett. We're going to go through Ahsoka. It's just to see where we are getting ready. Oh, and we didn't even talk about the Lego Star Wars too. We'll have to get back into that. See where we are before we've got Lego Star Wars coming, and we've got Skeleton Crew coming, and
also Star Wars Outlaws in video game world.
The video game
looks really good. Yes. Let's hope it lives up to the promise.
Indeed. So, let us know what you want us to talk about. And other than that, until next time.
May the Force be with you all.